Hey friend, it's great to see you. Welcome back. And today I'd like to talk about this game, It Takes Two, developed by Hazelight Studios. This is a 2021 adventure platformer game, co-op game, headed by the director Joseph Forrest, who now has a few games under his belt. One of those being A Way Out, which came out in 2018 and was similarly a co-op kind of prison break game that I did enjoy. I remember liking. And also the director behind Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons. Excuse me, I almost messed that up. Which was a game that Joseph Forrest had worked on back in the day at Starbreeze Studios. Similarly well acclaimed. And now Hazelight is working on a new game that I'm not so familiar with. I don't know the title exactly, but I'll look forward to researching that once we've kind of talked about the one I have in my hand. The game was published by EA under the EA Originals label. I remember EA kind of launching this initiative to better support indie studios and stuff, and I actually haven't heard many updates these days on EA Originals, but this was one of the games to come out of that. So I'll say first and foremost, I love couch co-op games, and the game is playable in co-op only. And so before we dive into the history of the game and its functionality, I just want to talk about the game itself. So here's the cover art, of course. We have our two main characters on the front, Cody and May, and they are getting cheered on by a rather crazy looking book as they fly away on a dandelion. There's a lot of telling what the game will be like and about in the cover art. The spine, I think, looks pretty nice on a shelf with its red and yellow features, and then of course the back here we have a little bit about the game and of course our famous legal terms or conditions or whatnot at the bottom as well. The back is pretty simple. It says pure co-op perfection, gleefully disruptive gameplay, a universal tale of relationships. And so let's talk a little bit about the history of the game, its development, and then also if it lives up to those descriptions that it includes on the back. Oh, and just really quick on the inside, I'll show you. Here's the disc, which features alternative art. I always like that, and this is pretty cool. I don't know what the emblems are on the CD there, but that does kind of stand out to me. That logo is a little different and just something unique that they did for the CD. I like that. And on the side here, this little leaflet tells us a little bit about play free online co-op with a friend. So that's a pretty cool feature of this game. As long as you have PlayStation Plus, you can download the game at Pass, and then you can play it online with your friend. PlayStation Plus, of course, being for the PlayStation version. And also, if you pick up the PS4 version, it is PS5 upgrade free available, so that's kind of cool. And we will go ahead and place this on the shelf here, and let's talk about the game. So the game is only playable in co-op, so pretty cool. And I love couch co-op games. My favorite thing about it is introducing my wife to just playing video games. A hobby of mine that I love and really appreciate that I have the opportunity to share that love with someone else. And so we played through this game together, and basically for us, we played it on the couch just sitting there, but it is kind of nice that they include those download features as well. This game kind of spawned out of the team behind A Way Out's want to continue working on some of the concepts that they began developing in A Way Out. Similarly, a cooperative game where you have to work together to complete puzzles and get through many different scenarios, etc. And Joseph wanted to really just give the team the flexibility to create as many possible gameplay concepts as they could come up with to keep this game kind of moving and fresh feeling as the player kind of goes through it. And the game was developed using Unreal Engine. The game was written on AngelScript, which is a scripting, open source compiled scripting language, kind of built for a handful of games, or used to build a handful of games now, including Amnesia, Penumbra, which are very cool survival horror games, or Talos Principle 2, which is also a very cool puzzle game that I don't think enough people know about. So some interesting history there. There was also a trademark dispute around Hazelight's trademark for It Takes Two, because when they tried to file a trademark for it, Take-Two Interactive said, well, ho, 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 buddy, this is a little too close to our name. And it caused some marketing challenges and issues for Hazelight. So that was unfortunate for them. But it didn't hold the game back too much because the game was received pretty favorably and it went on to sell about 20 million copies as of October 2024. It made and won plenty of awards and is also on path to have a movie made about it, I was last seeing. So maybe we'll see more in the future regarding a film for It Takes Two as well. So that's a little bit about what's been going on around the game. Let's talk about the game itself, and I'll share with you kind of my perspectives and my enjoyment of the title and so on. So the story of the game, you follow two characters, Cody and May are getting divorced. And their daughter wants to repair their relationship. So she's playing with some dolls that look like Cody and May, and she's kind of crying, and her tears, they land on the dolls. And the parents are then cursed into the doll bodies and are then required to kind of focus on fixing their relationship to reverse this curse with the help of Dr. Hakim, who is a book of love and will kind of guide them on this journey. So Cody and May will travel across various themed areas of their home to return to their human forms and kind of confront the issues in the relationship. So thematically, the game is a rom-com and kind of focused around collaboration and teamwork lessons, where players are cooperating frequently to solve puzzles, fight enemies, etc. There's also themes of marriage and marital issues, and kind of going along this journey helps both the players kind of confront those issues and talk through them and better understand each other. And also there's some commentary around parenthood, such as the effects that divorce might have on children. And so I would say that the moment-to-moment writing and dialogue were pretty engaging. Like when Cody and May are just running around the level and kind of just talking to each other, and there's a lot of wit, and the characters are quite likable and jokey, and so the game has a pretty lighthearted tone throughout, I would say, even when dealing with such serious issues. But the overarching story otherwise gets a little bit lost in the game. I'd say the game is pretty long and very gameplay focused, and so I don't think there are enough in-between moments to carry the narrative that are more specifically addressing the intrinsic elements of Cody and May's relationship. So a lot of the cinematics will be core geared toward whatever objectives you're on or whatever characters you're kind of meeting as you're exploring the world. And so I think for me that's a little bit of a miss, and I was not as convinced that the character arcs, the development over the course of the game, were clearly communicated, and that the biggest relationship sins that kind of led them on this path of divorce were as clearly communicated. So when I kind of extrapolate and step out, and I think if they just wanted to divorce because maybe one worked too much, the other was nonchalant, and as a result they just weren't seeing eye to eye in their relationship, those kind of things seem like something you would resolve way earlier in a relationship than being married and having a 6 or 7-year-old daughter and so on and so forth. So just overall, I don't think the game in its overarching narrative seemed like the stakes were particularly high for either character or for the situation, aside from, we're dolls and we need to get back to our human forms so that we can go about our lives. And so, for me that was a little bit of a miss, but I did really enjoy the moment-to-moment dialogue and writing and just kind of going on this adventure with these two characters. I found them to be particularly likable. I just wish that the overarching themes and the story were kind of more serious. Maybe took some more risks in terms of what they were communicating. So that's how I felt about the story. We're going to shift and talk about gameplay. And so this is an action adventure split screen couch or online co-op game. And I think the couch co-op split screen experience is the most intended way to probably play the game. And I think part of it is, you're running through this world, you're cooperatively solving these puzzles and playing mini games, and this was something that, I would hope would have been particularly relevant as a married guy and playing through the game with my wife. We're watching a married guy and his wife or married woman and her husband kind of traverse this world and solve these puzzles and things like that. And so I think that was the most intended way to play the game And throughout, it did kind of spawn a number of conversations and fun dialogue between my wife and I, where we were just kind of like, okay, well, let's solve it. We're going to do this puzzle, or directing each other like, hey, do this thing or do that thing. And so I did find that to be quite fun overall from like just the gameplay lens. So in the game, you will do a lot of platforming. There is some light combat, and you'll play tons of mini games. I think there's about 25 different mini games in total, while you traverse 7 chapters, which are different themed worlds. And within each chapter, there's sub-chapters and boss fights, etc. Things such as like you're flying around the yard and climbing trees, or maybe you're riding bugs and frogs in the garden of the house, or you're skating around in an icy snow globe wonderland that's a decorative piece in the home, or maybe you're exploring the toy room, going to space, etc. So each level has different gameplay gimmicks, is what I'll call them. And gimmick is not necessarily a negative term here, just a way to describe the gameplay aspects of these different areas. So each character will acquire a gimmick. So maybe you can rewind time, or you can shrink or become large, or you have a ranged throwable now for this chapter, or a grappling hook, or ability to replicate yourself, or use a magnet, or turn into a plant, so on and so forth. And these various gimmicks are used to kind of change up the puzzle solving that you will have to do to complete that part of the game. And I'll say again, similarly, I enjoyed the beat-to-beat moments where I'm sitting on the couch playing with my wife, and we're solving puzzles, and we're playing mini games, and we're laughing and exploring the world together. But overarching again, I would say that I felt there was a little too much content. I had this game taking us maybe 12 or 13 hours to play through. And coordinate, and here's where the issue lies, is we are required to coordinate 2 separate adult schedules. You know, we both work full-time jobs, we have hobbies and things. Coordinate 2 full-time schedules to play the game together. And it took us a couple months to beat as a result. And so the challenge really was that when I had a library of games that I could jump into and start playing, and we were in progress of playing through It Takes Two, there was nothing really grabbing me to say, hey man, you know, get back in this game, let's play this. There's the next section. We gotta get along this journey, and Cody and May have to like get back to their human bodies. The stakes are high, there's things on the line. And so from that lens, again, I just didn't feel that like I was getting pulled into the game. I was getting immersed and really engaged in everything kind of going on at a high level. You know, I can step back and I can think of like, oh, I remember we did this music puzzle where we had to hit these clouds, and the clouds would evaporate some fog so we could get a key or something like that. I can remember those moments, but kind of overarching, I think that the game was losing me in the idea of, oh my gosh, let's get to this next chapter, let's finish it. So it's kind of hard to communicate, I would say, but I hope you understand what I mean when the length of time that it required to beat a lengthy game over, you know, coordinating 2 schedules and trying to enjoy those overarching story patterns and gameplay themes. I wish there was a little more kind of pulling me in to the game. So and so for all the gameplay innovation, I think that there were opportunities for them to evolve the game design more. And one of the big things that I saw in the game design that kind of does hold it back for me a little bit is that many of the gameplay objectives, when you go from stage to stage, devolve into the completion of threes. I don't know how else to call it. I guess I'll call it that. But in a lot of modern day games, you see this where your objective going into a new area is, oh, you've opened into the semi-open world area, and now you have these 3 things you have to do. You have to go into these 3 portals and solve the puzzle in there. Activate the 3 generators. Break the ice on the 3 towers. Go down into the subterranean depths of the ocean and turn on 3 different, I think they were generators again. There's a couple of turn on 3 generators in this game. So I just wish that from the overarching, again, objectives for these core levels, that there was a little more evolution on kind of what you were supposed to do in each level. I think there were opportunities for that in my mind. I think a lot of developers probably use this as a way to create and kind of repetitive objectives in semi-open world that make it easy to focus on doing those, but then also focus on kind of looking around and exploring around. And where this game opens up and has exploration, I do like it. But I do wish that it didn't always have to be that you have to do these 3 things to then continue on. Let's do 2 things. Let's do no numbered amount of things. Maybe do 3 different things. You know, maybe instead of break 3 ice towers, break 1 ice tower. Solve an issue with some little villagers in the town. Play this mini game and get enough points to win a trophy that allows you to then do something. I don't know. Just things that could have continued to have me as a player thinking, oh, okay, this objective, it's new, it's interesting, it's different. That's fun. So I would have liked a little bit more of that in kind of the overarching gameplay. So I will say that playing the game as a platformer, it's very important that the game feels mechanically responsive. And I did really feel that with this game, you know, because of there always being new gameplay gimmicks and new controls and things. It's quick to pick up still. And when these new mechanics get introduced, they're well implemented, they're thought out, and for the player, they're pretty straightforward to get going on and trying out. So I did really appreciate that was a focus there. And I really did love the platforming and liked the puzzle solving. The game continued to challenge my perspective and try new things out. And one thing I would have seen in more modern games that have puzzles is they're quick to offer you a solution, but It Takes Two gives you the bandwidth and the time to just be there with your partner, problem solving, trying a couple of different things. And so I did appreciate that as well. I will say that the game, while not punishing, because if you die, there's a chance for you to quickly respond as long as your partner stays alive, or if you're not in a combat scenario, to just respawn and then try out the puzzle right there as you're going along. But I will say that the platforming can be challenging for players new to such a gameplay style. And I say that because there's probably players out there who have played video games for a number of years, but perhaps the only games they've played are like first-person shooters. Well, if you haven't played a platforming game before, or a third-person game, and kind of are in the situation where you have a full free cam look at a character that you're maneuvering and you're having to turn your camera and press buttons to jump at the same time and stuff. If you're new to that kind of genre and you're trying to find somebody to play the game with, just keep in mind that it can be challenging at times, the platforming sections. And so it's not an easy game mechanically from the lens of somebody who's brand new to playing video games could pick this up and play it. I often think a great place to start for co-op games overall, if you want to play a co-op game with somebody who hasn't played games before, is probably something like Borderlands, which I felt I played with Borderlands with my wife through all of the main titles in the game, in the series, and we had a lot of fun doing that. And I feel like FPS is usually a pretty low barrier for people to get into gaming. So it would be hard for me to just say It Takes Two is a game you could pick up with somebody brand new that you want to introduce video games to and play through together, because of the challenging platforming and cooperative coordination required to solve some of the puzzles. But if you have somebody who's a little more experienced, you'll have a lot of fun, I think. And so that's just something to keep in mind for the game. Okay, real quick, I talked a little bit about sound from a voice acting lens for the dialogue, but I did want to say that Cody and May, their voice performances are very excellent. The delivery is really good on them. And the annoying characters, like Dr. Hakim, who's very well purposefully written to be kind of obtuse and in your face and a little frustrating to, or at least that's how the characters perceive them, I guess. They are fitting the bill in terms of what the writers wanted to do with those characters, so I do appreciate it. I'll say that Rose as a character, the performance is okay, but I won't judge kids too harshly. It's fortunate that the game mostly focuses on Cody and May and surrounding creatively or brought to life characters throughout the worlds that you'll go through. So from a soundtrack lens, I can't really think of any particular music that stood out to me. It's very themed for the worlds that you're in, but no song was there where I go, ooh, that's nice. I got to go look that up on YouTube. So not that every game needs that, but it is something that I do look for and I listen for. And from a sound effects lens, there's a cacophony of sound effects, just all sorts of things as you go through these different worlds and areas. Everything's crisp and clean. Nothing that, you know, a gun goes off and you think, ooh, that's not punchy enough, or the small noises that the characters make when they're jumping around and swinging and so on and so forth. All just really brings the world to life and keeps me immersed in the experience. Doesn't take me out and start making me think about what the game sounds like and mechanically what that's doing for my experience of playing the game. So from a art direction and graphics lens, I think the game looks very impressive. And because of the number of themed worlds, they really have to work within a various degree of different art styles or directions that they would take the color, the scaling, just many different facets to the art direction. And it's all pretty cartoony and fun because you're dolls in like a doll fictionalized version of your house. And so one thing I did notice is that Unreal is always really a crisp and colorful and beautiful looking engine at times. And while it does that, it's also very cartoony with its 3D models and characters. And so I did think that there is a little more marriage that could have been created between the two. But I did enjoy just overall the look of the game, and I was impressed with how many different styles the artist had to pull into creating the world. So big props to them. That's cool. I didn't experience any big issues from technical performances, slowdowns, glitches, etc. So I played the PS5 version of the game and it held up really well, and I didn't notice anything worth calling out. And yeah, overall I think that kind of is a big summary of my thoughts on It Takes Two. So from a high level, the story was pretty good in the moment to moment overarching. I felt like the story kind of lost me, and I wasn't really convinced about the characters' developments and resolution of the situation they were attempting to resolve. The gameplay was really fun, again in the moment to moment, just exploring around, talking with my wife and trying to solve puzzles and fight enemies. That was all very fun. But when I look back on the game and I reflect on a lot of that stuff, or when I was in the progress of trying to finish it and it's the evening and we're trying to think about, okay, well, what do we want to do? We want to play a game. Which game do we want to play? I wasn't really getting grabbed in by the gameplay experience, being convinced that I need to pick this up and continue and let's beat it. Let's get it done. So it was a very casual game from that experience, and I would have liked the game to pull me in just a bit more, but I did really enjoy it at the same time, just those moment to moment parts of the game. So I'm a little tossed around on that. But the game sounded well. The voice acting was good. Nothing came up mechanically or the way it looked that really took me out of the gaming experience and pulled me away from the game. And so there are some opportunities here for It Takes Two, in my opinion. But I had a lot of fun with the game, and especially if you're looking for a co-op experience to play with somebody, especially somebody with just a little bit of experience with platforming games, I think you would get a really good experience out of It Takes Two. Because at the end of the day, I did have a lot of fun with the game and look fondly on the experience of kind of going through it, even if I do think that there are some areas of opportunity that I hope that Hazelight, I'm sure, will continue to work on and bring engaging games to us in the future. I loved Brothers. I had a really good time with A Way Out, and I had a lot of fun with It Takes Two. So I'm gonna have to do a little more research on what this new game that Hazelight has coming out in 2025, I believe. So overall, curious if you played It Takes Two and did you have a similar experience, or otherwise if you're interested in trying out this game. Well, those are my big thoughts. Appreciate you checking out the video, and if you liked the video, please like the video and subscribe and join this community. We'd love to have you here to talk about games in the future and stay connected. Well, until next time, be well, be healthy, and take care. All right, friend. Peace.